Assalamualaikum. You are tuning in live with IIUM TV's Political Insights 40 Minutes of Political Knowledge. A very good evening to everyone, and I'm Aisha Azarisman, and I will be your host for today's episode. Before we begin, don't forget to follow IIUM TV on all of our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and our latest handle on TikTok. So if any of you have been watching the news recently, you would know that our Prime Minister have just previously visited China for an official visit in which he received a total of 170 billion in foreign direct investments, which brings me to today's topic. We will discuss further on foreign direct investments, GDPs, and so on, which we'll familiarize. And to discuss this topic today, we have invited a very special guest who is also an alumni of IIUM. He is a senior lecturer under the Faculty of Businesses and Economics in the University of Malaya, or also known as UM. Introducing to you guys Dr. Zaidi. Welcome to today's episode. How are you feeling?
Well, Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for having me here.
Have you had dinner?
Alhamdulillah. Yes, inshallah afterwards.
Afterwards?
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't had dinner yet?
Nope.
Hopefully that's not
Hopefully
affecting
nasi
you lah.
biryani after this, inshallah.
Oh, okay, inshallah. We can have nasi biryani together, maybe.
Inshallah. We'll see.
Okay, so I think we'll jump straight into the topic.
Alright, okay.
All right, so the first question to begin our discussion tonight, right, is before we jump into the topic, right, maybe can you introduce to us what is actually economic development?
Alright, so before we start, I believe we need to make a clear distinction between what is economy, what is economics, and what is economic, and economics. Alright, so economy is actually a system whereby resources is being extracted and then used to make goods, to offer services, and then those goods and services to be distributed and then to be consumed by the economy. So it's a whole system, the whole system that actually not to govern, but the way that we look at this system. All right. So economics is an adjective that we use to refer to the economy itself. All right. And economics, which is what my faculty and the Kuliah of Economics and Management Sciences as well, is about the study of economics. All right, the study of economics. So now, when we talk about economic development, so again, it is a system whereby resources are being extracted, being manipulated. In some cases, it can even be manipulated, can be used, and then to make goods and services, and then to be distributed, and then to be consumed by the consumers or customers rather. So when we talk about development, so how do we actually make sure that this, the system itself grow? All right. So by growing, or in order for us to gauge whether the system is growing or not, so we need to have certain measurement. All right. For example, one of the most famous examples of an economic development tool is actually what we call GDP. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. So GDP is actually a measurement whereby what we have produced within the economic system. Let's say a GDP for Malaysia is about 300 plus billion. So 300 billion US dollar. So it means the Malaysian economy produces goods and services of about 300 billion US dollar per year. All right. So when we talk about development, it means, so we've always talked about GDP growth of 3%, 4%. It means that we are growing from last year. All right. So we talk about GDP growth of 3%. It means that we are growing from last year's GDP to this year of about 3%. All right. So I think that's the base knowledge that we need to bear in mind first.
All right. Thank you so much. So having introduced us to what economic development is, right, do you think Malaysia is on the right track in developing its economy, especially in today's current government?
Okay, so when we talk about the government itself, of course, it is rather early to judge. It's only about, 6 months, I think.
Yeah.
So 6 months. So it is never, but when we look at the indicators, for example, the one statistics that you have mentioned about just now, which is the how many was now? The FDI from China is about 100 plus
170
billion.
Yep.
That one is in US dollar.
Yes.
Okay.
Malaysian ringgit.
Malaysian ringgit.
Yes,
So,
that's in Malaysian ringgit.
all right. So when we talk about this FDI, so sorry, coming back to your questions, whether this is a good indicator. So Malaysia, we need to understand that Malaysia is an economy where Malaysia is a trading economy. So we are not a closed-off economy. For example, North Korea is a closed economy. So we are an open economy whereby we trade with each other. All right. And so when we do trading, so part of the trading as well is to welcome foreign direct investments. All right. So when we have this kind of investment, of course, it bodes well to our country. And Malaysia has been opening up their economy since the late 80s under Dr. Mahathir, through the mass industrialization and then the Look East policy to Japan, Korea. All right. But these foreign direct investments, it can, so when we talk about, if we were to refer to the GDP just now, so one of the largest contributors to GDP is actually manufacturing sector. All right. So the ones that we have in Shah Alam, the ones we have in Penang, in JB, for example. So those are the industrial area. We call industrial area. So so this investment has been coming. So when we talk about a good government that welcome, so a good, strong, stable government, if you want to use that word, stable government, actually leads to more investment. So when we have, foreign direct investment, it's actually bodes well with how the economy, because we need this investment to create jobs. When we have jobs, I mean, when we talk about economy itself, we have this idea of what we call spillover economics. So when we employ, skilled workers, this is different from foreign workers, which is different from expatriate, different from the low skill foreign workers. So when we talk about this, skilled workers, so when they are here, they are going to, spend money. So they are going to buy things, they are going to be spending at the restaurants, they are going to be buying new clothes, they are going to be buying the goreng pisang from the tepi jalan. It's actually creating an economy in of itself. All right, so that's what we call spillover economy. So when we have this investment, foreign direct investment, it helps the economy to actually grow. All right, so in order for us to attract more foreign direct investments, so we need a strong, stable government. Aisha.
So basically, the direct relationship of it being that if we have a stable government, then we will attract more foreign direct investment.
Yeah, that's the idea, basically. Yeah,
that's the idea, basically. So speaking about jobs, right? More jobs and things. What do you think about the classification of income here in Malaysia and its relevance? Do you think it's relevant? Do you think it's not?
Yeah. So we need to bear in mind, Aisha, this classification, based on the T20, M40, and B40 is actually a novel approach. It has not been implemented, I think, more than even 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we don't have this. So it's actually a new thing. But of course, when we have this kind of classification, it comes with any classification, any measurement tool, any analytical tool comes with pros and cons. So we talk about these classifications, B40, M40, and T20. So because this is measured vis-a-vis their income only, all right. So we need to bear in mind. So for example, when we put two families together, all right. So let's say both of them are M40, middle 40%, all right. So this M40 is actually living by themselves. Maknanya they have their their kids living in their 3-room apartment, for example. And then another M40 family is living with their extended family. So when we have these two, families, so one of the families would have to, employ extra daycare charges and whatnot. So in terms of the disposable income, I would argue the M40 that's living by themselves without any extended family, will have a lower disposable income. So that in of itself is actually one of the cons. But I would argue the classification in of itself is a good starting point. All right. But of course, when we talk about, there's a recent suggestion by the Minister of Economic Development, Yang Berhormat Rafizi Ramli. So he shared that the way forward is actually to use the net income approach, whereby you are no longer tied down to the T20, M40, and B40. So whatever that you have left will be used as a yardstick instead. But again, it comes with a cons as well. So one of which, how about a T20 that is highly indebted? All right. So he or she is taking what 60%, 70% of the whole income and then paid to the bank. So left with 30%. So how about a B40 or M40 that's actually saves more? So that's I think that's the pros and cons that we need to consider before we consider this kind of classifications.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zaidi.
Yeah.
So before we go further into our discussion tonight, having introduced us to what economic development is, so we will be taking a short break, give you guys a chance to take a breather and have a drink. We'll be right back. Stay in your seats. You please kak. Penat lah you. That's okay. Welcome back to the studio. We are live with Political Insights. So previously we were just introduced to what economic development is. So we will proceed with tonight's discussion, in which I'll jump straight into the fifth question, or in this case the fourth.
Yeah.
Right. So what are the economic sectors in Malaysia that contribute significantly to Malaysia's GDP?
All right. So when we talk about GDP itself, the largest component is actually manufacturing, services, and oil and gas. All right. So when we talk about manufacturing, for example, Malaysia is well known in terms of their our actually electrical appliances. All right. So you might be hearing brands such as Kin, KHIND.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Kin. So that's actually a Malaysian brand, made in Malaysia. And exported globally. All right. And then we have Panasonic.
Is that also Malaysian?
Yes, also Malaysian. All right.
Okay.
And then some of the appliances for Panasonic, for Sony, for Sharp TV. Sharp TV is actually produced in Shah Alam, if I'm not mistaken. So our manufacturing, this is only for electrical. So we have, heavy engineering. Now we are starting to produce ships, commercial ships in Lumut, Boston. So in terms of manufacturing, Malaysia has been known since I think 1980s. Right? But when we talk about these manufacturing sectors, all right, not all manufacturing. I mean, when we talk about these appliances and whatnot, most of these manufacturing giants, they are employing what we call low-skilled workers. Low-skilled workers, which is okay. But in order for us to move to the next step, we need to go for, the model that's currently being offered by China, which is value-added services, value-added products. All right. So instead of just producing, electrical, there's nothing wrong with producing these appliances. But we need to be moving forward to produce, drones, to produce. In Penang, we have, factories that produces microchips. All right. So we need to be focusing on these high-tech industries, so that when we control the supply chain or the production, and when we, produces this kind of, products, high-tech products, it helps the Malaysian economy as well. All right. And then the next sector is actually services. All right. So when we talk about services, it's our hotels, it's our, what else? Medical services. If you notice, more and more tourists are coming to Malaysia for medical tourism. All right, so medical tourism. So when we want to relate to political subjects, for example, so I'm sure the listeners, some of you are political science students. So what we need to do moving forward is actually helping, or let's say if you are elected to the Malaysian Parliament, inshallah one day, so if you are elected to the Malaysian Parliament, you need to figure out ways or improve the current laws or regulations that can help these industries to go. Or to grow. Sorry, makan belacan. To grow. Now, because if you were to go to Penang, for example, the Penang private hospitals are actually, receiving patients from Indonesia. Lots of them from Aceh, from Medan. They actually spend, and Penang medical tourism is very smart. They actually provided packages. So let's say for the whole family, only one of them receiving treatment, right? So the rest of the families will be offered, hotel stays, packages, tour packages for them to go for island hopping, spending some time in the beaches. So that's part of. So when we talk about medical tourism, it's not only for the patient itself. So it can be form of recovery as well. So as political science students, so your understanding of the economy, how economy works, is crucial actually. If you understand how economy works, how an economic system works, you will produce legislation, you will pass laws to actually help these industries to grow. If you were to talk to businessmen, businesswomen, they don't actually like handouts now. They don't like handouts. Government giving grants. Some of them don't even prefer these grants. Yes, I'm not blaming those who seek grants, by the way. But some businessmen, businesswomen, what they need or what they want from the government, which is, the lawmakers, is actually a conducive environment whereby they can conduct their businesses freely. Without any encumbrance, without any bureaucratic, this hassle and whatnot. And then the third sector is actually oil and gas. Malaysia is very well known about this. So Petronas is one of the largest contributors. All right, but Malaysia is also home to the to the what we call the supporting environment. For example, one of the companies, I'm not sure, I forgot about the name. One of the companies only specializes in helicopter ferry services. All right. So let's say the oil and gas. Kita panggil apa? Oil and gas. No, the decks, planta tu, the decks tu, near the coast of Terengganu. So in order for them to go to Terengganu, so there will not be any commercial flights to go there. So what they need is actually a helicopter. And this helicopter is not, the tourism, grade helicopters. It is a specialized helicopters because they need to be flying in extreme conditions even. Because they need to ferry off, sick oil and gas workers and whatnot. All right. So there's actually one company, is listed company by the way. So when we talk about listed, also sorry, this is political science students. All right. So we talk about listed companies. So listed companies is actually a company that is being listed on Bursa Malaysia. So one of the ways for us to actually know this kind of companies, instead of having Sendirian Berhad, they will have Berhad behind. Alright, so for example, Petronas Berhad. So Petronas is listed. Alright, so TNB Tenaga Nasional Berhad. So TNB is listed. Alright, so this company is listed. I forgot about the name of the company, but this company only provides the services of the helicopter ferry services to and fro the decks lah. Alright, so in order for, again, coming back to my earlier point, it is very, very important. Of course, when we talk about Malaysian economics, Malaysian economics is very much top down. All right. So when we look at the power distance index by Professor Gerd Hofstede, so Professor Hofstede mentioned that Malaysia is number one. Malaysia is number one in terms of the power distance index. All right. So what does PDI means? We tend to respect our authorities too much, whereby when Professor Hofstede measured Americans, on the other hand, they are at the other extreme end of the spectrum. So they don't really yes, they don't have respect lah, which is Malaysia is number one and then Indonesia is near us as well. All right. So when we so this has one of the implications is that our policies are very much top down. All right. So I would argue, instead of looking at this as a weakness, all right, so it can be a form of strength as well. So when you go into politics one day, regardless as a YB, yang berhormat ke, whatever it is, please introduce policies that can help our businesses to grow. All right. So provide grants, loans, ease their applications. Don't put too much burden in terms of the documentation. So make it easy. So that's the point lah. All right, GDPR.
Right. Thank you so much, Doctor, for sharing with us. So before we move on to our last session, or last part of tonight's discussion, actually, we will be having another short break. So go grab yourself a cup of coffee and a bowl of popcorn maybe, and we will be right back with you guys. Dia cakap, penat lah you. That's what And welcome back live in the studio to discuss tonight's topic. And I think we will be approaching the last part of our discussion tonight. So I'll jump straight into the question. So, good governance is, of course, vital to the country, as everyone would know. So, how can good governance accelerate economic development here in Malaysia? Is it by increasing accountability and transparency, or how would you?
All right. Because when we talk about good governance, we need to understand what is good governance. So, good governance, it means that every institutions or the all the players within the same system is working within their rights, and then they are what we call it, carrying out the responsibilities within the given statute, for example. All right. So there's a lot of studies on this, on the correlation between good governance and economic development. All right. But to say that it is the sole factor that actually drives this economic development, so yes, there are correlations, but we cannot say for certain that they have a causation effect. All right. So it may correlate, but one is not absolutely, the what we call it, we cannot be certain that this is caused by good governance alone, because when we talk about economic development, it has so many factors, so many factors. So one of them is good governance, lah. All right. So when we list down the countries with the highest GDP, all right. So when we put them together with in terms of the score, in terms of the what we call the transparency index, the TI, by the Transparency International. All right. So when you put them two and two together, you can see quite a correlation. All right. So for example, the top 5 countries in terms of the GDP is actually the Nordic countries, the Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Finland, Iceland, and Norway. All right. And when you put the TI, in terms of the scores, the TI countries, these countries were more or less in the same level as well. So that goes to show there's actually a correlation between good governance. I mean, the TI index actually measures, the country's governance system, the corruption, and whatnot. All right. So when you put the two and two together, there's actually a correlation. Now, when we talk about these Nordic countries, Norway, for example, or they have a system. The economic system is what we call the democratic socialism. All right. They are a democracy, but they work within the socialist framework. How do we define that? All right. So, for example, yes, people are electing their prime ministers and whatnot, but it is a highly socialized country. All right, whereby as high. Do you have any idea what's the income tax rate in Malaysia?
No.
It's very low, actually. We have one of the lowest, actually, in our region. We have one of the lowest. But if you go to the Nordic countries, their personal income tax is about 50+%. 50+%. So let's say if you were to earn 10,000 ringgit, for example, if you were to stay in Norway, 5,000 ringgit goes to the government. Now, what makes you feel? How does it feel to have half of your salary to go to the government?
I don't know, upsetting.
Upsetting because we know, let's not get hypothetical kan. So, my point is, Norwegian, for example, or Swedish or Finnish, they are willing to pay, that high level of income, tax, because they know that their government is able to manage their money properly. That's about it, all right? Norway has a sovereign fund. Sovereign fund, dana berdaulat. Ours is called Khazanah, Khazanah National. And then Norway's sovereign fund, their sovereign fund is close to 1 trillion US dollar. 1 trillion US dollar. All right. So let's say, for example, so Norwegian, this sovereign fund, when they invest their money, for example, around the world, globally, so they will invest in real estates, in stocks, in bonds. So these returns will be used to benefit Norwegians, welfare system, and inclusive of the tax that were paid to them, lah. All right. So in Norway, for example, you don't have to pay for your childbirth. Your schools are free. Your schooling system is free, from your kindergarten up until university. In fact, when you go to the university, you are going to be given allowances. All right? Do you have allowances in Malaysia or not? No, not yet.
Not yet.
Bukan no, not yet. So, which is your generation will hopefully one day make it, possible for us to actually give money for people to study. Because right now, me included lah, when we graduated, we are burdened with debt already, right? Which is most of all, if not all, right? So more and more younger people do not see the incentive for them to go to universities, right? So when you have good governance, in Norway, for example, it pays for people to go to university, right? Because it is free, and on top of the free education, they get allowances. So you give people incentives to follow their passion, which is, I have a different take on that, but let's not talk about that first. Follow your passion, though that's a scam, actually, for me. But my point being, if you have good governance, if you really take care of your taxes, the way you collect money. I'm not saying that Malaysia is bad. No, I'm not saying that. But as with anything, we can always improve. All right. So if we were to have good governance, we can always provide this. Social nets. We call them social nets. All right. If you go to US, for example, yes, because US, on top of the federal income tax, they have a state tax. So these high taxes does not translate. I'm not bashing my American friends. I'm not bashing my American friends. So on top of this tax, so they have to pay for the health insurance, they have to pay for the childcare and whatnot. All right. So yes, they are a democracy, but we have different kinds of democracy. And Malaysia is also a democracy. We also practice some form of socialism, whereby our healthcare is almost free for our citizen, almost free. And then our education system up until the secondary level is almost free. And our university students are highly subsidized, even though that you pay, good amount of tuition fees, but still highly subsidized. It's about 90%. All right. So that comes from the money or tax money, taxpayers' money from the excise duties that the government collected. So my point being, once you are in this field, which is political science, it is vitally important for you to understand how the economy works, so that you need to be able to see the link, or if you pass this legislation, for example, what will happen to the masses or to the economic, do we actually have economic spillover effects? All right. So, for example, the Bantuan Rahmah, for example. So when we hand out this bantuan, sara hidup, bantuan, this cash transfer, does it actually have, the intended economic effects? Another example, if the government through the Ministry of Higher Education give you the vouchers to the students, do these vouchers actually help the students? All right, and what kind of economic impacts that it can help around the universities? Because Malaysia is very unique as well. I think universities around the world, we have been seeing that one, we take care of the universities. Usually, what will happen is that the surrounding community should thrive as well. All right, so we provide jobs, for example. We provide, in the mahalah canteens, for example, the foods are subsidized tau. All right, it is also subsidized. How? The operators are being subsidized in terms of their utilities payment. All right, so that's why they are able to charge lower prices compared to outside foods. So when you eat those nasi, subsidized nasi, subsidized rice, please think and think about the the less fortunate people, and think of how you can help them one day, inshallah. All right.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Zaidi, for sharing with us what it means to actually have good governance to help our economic development here in Malaysia. So basically, like, although Malaysia isn't quite there yet, and there's still a lot to complain about here in Malaysia, but we are getting there, and like you said, that we would probably work on it, especially for our generation, when we become the next future leaders for our country, right? Inshallah, we will make our country better, maybe towards the top.
Inshallah.
Towards the top. Amin.
Amin.
Right, so thank you so much, Dr. Zaidi, for helping us peel and go deep into this discussion tonight, and making us familiarize, to help us make our country better, inshallah. So I guess hopefully for those who are watching, especially political science students, as Dr. Zaidi has mentioned multiple times, do take your notes, especially if you're not that interested in economy. It does take a big toll and role in our lives here in Malaysia, especially. So hopefully that all of you were paying attention, not just eating your popcorn and drinking your coffee. Right, so I guess that is all for today's episode. Thank you so much again to Dr. Zaidi for joining us in tonight's episode and helping us discuss this topic. And before we end our live tonight, don't forget to follow IIUM on all of our social media platforms: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and on our latest platform on TikTok. So thank you so much to you guys for tuning into tonight's episode. I'm Aisha Azari Ismail, and this has been Political Insights, 40 minutes of political knowledge. See you guys next time.